Hey, Ryan. Hi, this is Sarah Palin.
Ryan, Donald Trump Jr.
Harsh to NC. Hey, everybody, I want y'all to check out a fellow Marines podcast.
My name is Ted Nugent, and I got a call from my buddy Ryan F. Samuels, and he wants me to tell you that he's a working hard, playing all-American son of a who is celebrating God, family, country.
Welcome to the Ryan Samuels Show, one of the top political podcasts in the United States, where we have a healthy distrust for government and mainstream media. The Ryan Samuels Show is a raw, unfiltered look at American politics. Follow on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Rumble, and all podcast platforms. Here is your host, Ryan Samuels.
Hello, Patriots. It is a beautiful evening this evening, and there's been some recent news about Jeffrey Epstein. The guy's been in the news just about every single day since his scandal was unveiled. I mean, it has been astonishing. People have been calling for the flight logs. They've been demanding it, and they have been denied. But recently, a judge in, I think, New York, yes, Southern District of New York, has ordered the release of 150 people mentioned in Jeffrey Epstein's lawsuits. Now, social media is going around calling this a victory, saying that, hey, yeah, we're going to get the flight logs. That is not what this is. You're not going to get the flight logs. You're going to get victims' names and associates. Interestingly enough, if it's being stayed, you can't get it till 2024. Why? Why not today? Why not the day that it was ordered? Why are we waiting to the beginning of next year? Is that to allow people to get ready for their stories or whatever? Why would you wait? It doesn't make any sense. Here's an article from NBC News on the release of the documents. Judge orders release of names of more than 150 people mentioned in Jeffrey Epstein's lawsuit documents. That's all it is. People mentioned in his lawsuit documents. The names include those of sex abuse victims, litigation witnesses, Epstein employees, and even some people with only passing connections to the scandal. A federal judge has ordered the public disclosure of the identities of more than 150 people mentioned in a mountain of court documents related to the disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein, saying that most of the names were already public and that many had not objected to the release. The people whose names are to be disclosed, including sexual abuse victims, litigation witnesses, Epstein employees, and even some people with only a passing connection to the scandal, have until January 1st to appeal the order, signed Monday by the judge Loretta Preska. For several years, Preska has reviewed documents sought by Miami Herald for a civil case filed by one of Epstein's victims that eventually was settled. Many of the records related to that lawsuit were publicly released in past years, but on Monday, the judge made determinations about some portions of the records that were initially withheld on potential privacy grounds and what can be made public about certain people mentioned in the records. In some instances, she noted that individuals had given media interviews or that their names had previously emerged publicly in various ways, including at a trial 2 years ago of Epstein's associate and former girlfriend, Ghislaine Maxwell. Preska concluded that some portions of the records should remain confidential, including those identifying people who were children when they were sexually abused by Epstein and had tried to maintain their privacy. The Epstein case has spawned countless conspiracy theories about the possibility of involvement of rich and powerful people in sex trafficking. The 3 criminal cases brought by federal judge and state authorities, however, have focused on allegations about sexual abuse by Epstein himself and Maxwell. Epstein died by suicide, allegedly, in August of 2019 in federal lockup in Manhattan as he awaited trial on sex trafficking charges. He was accused of luring numerous underage girls to his home under the guise of giving him massages and then sexually abusing them. Maxwell, 61, is serving a 20-year prison sentence after she was convicted in December of 2021 for helping Epstein recruit, sexually, and abuse underage girls. 20 years. Only 20 years for countless underage victims. Now, Let me show you this gem here, so you can see the comparison of the crimes. Proud Boys trusted lieutenant sentenced after cooperating with federal officials in January 6 case. After his arrest on Capitol attack charges, Charles Donahue assisted in the seditious conspiracy case that sent Proud Boys Enrique Torrio to prison for 22 years. You got more prison time for January 6th than Ghislaine Maxwell got for recruiting and helping Jeffrey Epstein abuse underage girls. More prison time. We're not talking, in Ghislaine Maxwell's case, we're not talking this happened once, twice. We're talking about hundreds of times and dozens of girls, bringing them to a remote island where presumably people were brought and these underage girls were giving them all massages and sexually abusing them all. That is a horrific scenario. And if for January 6th, you get more prison time than that? That's the most absurd thing that I've ever heard. But there was a news anchor, Amy Robach, who had this story years ago. She had the story. She had witnesses. She had Prince Andrew. She had other famous celebrities that were there that engaged in this activity from victims. She did a great job. She got the story and she was shut down. They wouldn't let her publish it years before it even came about. So obviously there is some sort of cover-up going on here. And when Amy Robach was she was an ABC News anchor, and when she was on the desk in between commercial breaks, the cameras are still rolling and recording. So they kind of break and then they talk to each other, but the cameras are still recording. This was her getting caught on candid camera talking about the situation.
The story for 3 years. I've had this interview with Virginia Roberts. We would not put it on the air. And then Alan Dershowitz was also implicated in it because of the planes. She told me everything. She had pictures. She had everything. She was in hiding for 12 years. We convinced her to come out. We convinced her to talk to us. It was unbelievable what we had. Clinton. We had everything. I tried for 3 years to get it on, to no avail, and now it's all coming out, and it's like these new revelations, and I freaking had all of it. I'm so pissed right now. Like, every day I get more and more pissed because I'm just like, oh my God, what we had was unreal. Other women backing it up. Brad Edwards, the attorney, 3 years ago, saying there will come a day when we will realize Jeffrey Epstein was the most prolific pedophile this country has ever known. And I had it all 3 years ago.
But the creepy thing is that we would make access to all of these high-profile people.
Well, then I got a little concerned about why I couldn't get on.
On the leaked insider tape, Amy Robach says she had the Jeffrey Epstein story 3 years prior, but her exclusive interview was shelved. Robach says in the leaked tape there was a lot of pressure from Buckingham Palace. According to NPR, the famed lawyer Alan Dershowitz also pressured the network to kill the story.
Shortly before the interview was due to air, Harvard emeritus law professor Alan Dershowitz called the network. He was also one of Epstein's lead defense attorneys.
We wonder if the story was killed to protect the rich and powerful. It seems few were worried about protecting the women who may have been Jeffrey Epstein's victims. Remember, Epstein was still a free man 3 years ago. And just to be clear, the interview has still not aired. What is ABC News waiting for, or who are they still protecting?
She told me everything. She had pictures. She had everything. She was in hiding for 12 years. We convinced her to come out. We convinced her to talk to us. It was unbelievable what we had. Clinton, we had everything. So do I think he was killed? 100%. Yes, I do. Because he made his whole living blackmailing people. Yeah. There were a lot of men in those planes, a lot of men who visited that island, a lot of powerful men who came into that apartment.
When I heard he was found in his cell,
I knew immediately. And they made it seem as though he made that suicide attempt 2 weeks earlier, but his lawyers claimed that he was roughed up by his cellmate around the neck. That was all like to plant the seed, and then that's why I really believe it. Like, really believe it.
He's got to have left evidence, like, in the unexplained.
Well, Ghislaine Maxwell, who I had all sorts of stuff on her too. I love it. I'm like, it's so funny to hear everyone say her name now, because I'm like, oh my God, like, I had all this, and everyone was like, who's that? Who cares? I kept getting that. Who cares? She knows everything. She should be careful. Well, she was his, like, she went out and recruited all of these girls.
Stand by.
She should watch her back.
Pretty scary stuff there. So, I mean, she had the story, obviously, and it was shut down. There was pressure from Buckingham Palace, because we all know that Prince Andrew was at the island, at least allegedly was at the island, and she never got to tell her story, and had this other people had the story not gotten out. I mean, for 3 years, he was still able to conduct his sexual palisades with these underage girls. And it's pretty concerning with his death, okay? And I will say, I don't know what happened, right? I don't know. Nobody really knows besides Jeffrey Epstein, and he's dead. So the guy allegedly attempts to commit suicide, right? When that happens, they put you on suicide watch in a prison. And you're watched 24/7 to make sure you don't kill yourself. Especially a high-profile case that's international news. That's the #1 story in the country. Like, dude, they're gonna make you go to trial. They're not gonna let you kill yourself. And he had a suicide attempt 2 weeks prior to that. And then the night that he kills himself, the guards just decide not to do their counts. The cameras aren't working in that building. There are a lot of circumstantial evidence that points to a ton of suspicion. It's just as simple as that. There's a lot of circumstantial evidence that comes to a lot of suspicion. Here is Representative Tim Burchett from Tennessee. He talks about, this is not directly related to Jeffrey Epstein case, but it kind of is, because he talks about how the Congress people are compromised, that they're honeypotted. And if you're honeypotted, if you're a congressman and you go out to a bar and whoever your mark is, they send an incredibly gorgeous woman or man to talk to that person, to seduce them, sleep with them, and then videotape it. And then when they go to vote for something, they say, hey, listen, were you at the, we got you on tape doing this. What would your wife say about that? This is going to be a national news story. We suggest you vote this way. So he is talking about that kind of stuff that's going on.
Representative Tim Burchett of Tennessee, I know you're passionate about this. You've been pushing to unseal these documents. My question is why?
Well, I got involved with it. I'm disgusted with the whole thing, the supposed suicide, the cover-up. It's just down the line. My colleague, Senator Marsha Blackburn, dear friend of mine, she was denied that in the Senate. I think Dick Durbin did it. I believe was the chairman, subpoena those records. What they're releasing right now, the flight records are one thing. What we want is the client list. I think that's what you need. This complete cover-up of the uniparty, as we call it in Washington. You've got Republicans and Democrats on that thing, and if they're dirtbags, I say put them out there. Let them put them in the court of public opinion, because those people, dadgummit, this thing has just gone on too long, and this is what they do. They drag this thing out. If this was you or me, it'd be on the front page of the paper in every paper in the country, but it's not. It's the elite in this country, in this world, and they call the shots, and they call the shots in our legal system as well as the Congress of the United States of America.
There is a whole other world. I mean, if you think about it, there are a million ecosystems across the country and around the globe that you'd have to be inside to really understand. Is the name of someone on these client lists or the flight logs, which you've asked for as well, is it guilt by association, or is it merely that you want full transparency? Because just because somebody engaged or interacted with him, does that make them guilty of anything?
No, and it could be business clients. There could be business retreats on this island. It doesn't necessarily mean they went over there for sex with underage girls. But I do believe that they should be put out there and then let them make their case for it. That's why I'm not so concerned with the flight logs. Mm-hmm. I want the little black book. Why is this being held back? It's been well over a year since Epstein was allowed to die, however he did die. That's still a question. I still have a question in my mind. The most talked about prisoner in the country, possibly the world at that time. And just so happens the cameras broke and his guards weren't watching him at that time. So there's a lot to be answered in this whole thing. It's a cover up. We'll never know all the answers because, our judicial system, our Justice Department, in my opinion, is compromised. And this is just another example of them proving that.
Well, a lot of people would say our justice system has been politicized. Do you think that Jeffrey Epstein has become any part of a distraction? I mean, he is not the only wealthy, connected man on the planet who had unsavory connections, who had a sex island. Has he become somewhat of a catch-all for the violence and for the just criminality of a whole network of people who are still living today?
Yes, ma'am. I think partially, but also it just shows the disconnect that these people have with the rest of us, and how they think they can flaunt the laws of our laws and laws of nature, for that matter. Just the perversion of these folks with having sex with minors, to me, is enough. They need to be locked up and thrown. I mean, I proposed in Tennessee the death penalty, and it actually passed, but it was thrown out as unconstitutional. So I just think we need to get this out there. I think these folks need to be exposed, and if they're Republicans, if they're Democrats, so be it. I'm sick of it. There should be no cover up. They should have nowhere to hide. Representative
Tim.
So, I mean, they bring up a really good point, and I think we can all agree on that. There was a lot. This guy was a multi-billionaire, and he was involved in hedge funds. He was involved in a ton of things, and that representative has a point. Just because they're with him at a certain amount of time, if they're talking about investments or whatever, it doesn't make them guilty of conducting whatever. But here is the same Congressman, Tim Burchett, on Fox News with Jesse Waters, and let's listen to this.
The way the country's running, we should assume the politicians are being sexually blackmailed. How can you explain the open border or the record spending and all the BS that comes out of that town? Well, Congressman Tim Burchett of Tennessee says sexual blackmail in the House, just a part of the deal.
It's how it works. you're visiting, you're out of the country or out of town, or you're in a motel or bar in DC, and some whatever you're into, women or men or whatever, comes up and they're very attractive and they're laughing at your jokes and you're buying them a drink. Next thing you know, you're in the motel room with them naked, and next thing you know, you're about to make a key vote, and what happens? Some well-dressed person comes up and whispers in your ear, "Hey man, there's tapes out on you. Were you in a motel room on whatever with whoever?" And then you're like, "Uh-oh," and said, "You really ought not be voting for this thing."
Wow, I only thought there was like one Swalwell. Turns out there's dozens.
It's sad, but that's American politics. That's what we have evolved into. But, like I said, just because they were with Jeffrey Epstein doesn't make them guilty. You're not guilty by association. You need evidence in this country. You need facts to prove things. Here's a video of Bill Gates being questioned about this. And his response is a little telling.
Ask you about Jeffrey Epstein. Melinda mentioned that was one of the strains, your relationship with him. And why did you continue to meet with him? When you met him, he was already a convicted sex offender, and do you regret that?
So he met with him when he was already a convicted sex offender, right? So he knew who this guy was as a person. Allegedly, he may not even have known. Not everybody you meet, is a sex offender. But let's listen to some more.
I certainly made a huge mistake, not only meeting him in the first place, but I met with him a number of times. I had a goal of raising money for global health. I didn't realize that in a meeting with him almost downplayed the incredibly awful things he did. I learned more about that over time, but, I'd add that to the list of big mistakes, including, where Melinda's advice was sound and I should have followed it sooner than I did.
You never saw anything where you thought, this doesn't feel right. Melinda kind of had a visceral reaction the first time she met him.
No, he was a bad person. I had a reason that I thought those meetings would lead to something good, but I shouldn't have done them.
Ask you about Jeffrey Epstein.
He could be telling the truth. We don't know. We're not going to know. That's it, period. Period, point blank, end of discussion. But there is no reason to hide the flight logs. What's the point of it? What does that do for the greater good? There's no reason to hide anything. This is a public trial. This is a public court case. Everything should be open to the public. That's kind of how it works. Let's watch this video of let's just watch this.
Now, when you talk about transnational crime and identifying organizations, I've got to bring this forward again because I asked Director Wray about this a couple of weeks ago when he was before us. And we've got one of the biggest, most well-known, most high-profile sex trafficking rings ever in this Jeffrey Epstein case. And Director Wray didn't give me a very complete answer when I asked about transparency around that case and about releasing those flight logs so we can know who all else is involved in this. And you talk about the need to get information from these organizations and information from the court. Why would you not release these flight logs? Why would there be a protection of not going after releasing this information? Why would you not make public that information? Why would you not make public all of the video that has been captured from Jeffrey Epstein's Palm Beach townhouse, which the FBI has?
Ma'am, I'm aware of the interaction with Director Wray from, I believe, last week or the week before. Our team would be happy to work on any formal responses. I'm not aware of any subpoenas that have come to the FBI for formal requests. But
no, you haven't gotten a subpoena because the chairman ended up adjourning twice before I could bring forward my request for.
He ended it before she could bring up her request, and his response, well, we never got a subpoena. But if you were subpoenaed, you're not going to release it anyway.
For a subpoena. But you're talking about the need the need to get this information from these groups. And here you have a group, an organization, and we can't get the information. And it is just ridiculous that we are sitting here. We have laws on the books. We have expectations of agencies, and we have a need for information. You've got it. We can't get it.
Remember that Congress and the Senate are the ones that hold the FBI and DOJ accountable. They work for Congress. So at any point, if Congress wants to review documents, they have to let them. But that's not how this works anymore. So, Bill Clinton has visited Epstein Island allegedly 27 times. That's the allegation, okay? If you were Bill Clinton and you didn't visit the island 27 times, wouldn't you want the flight logs released to say, hey, I was there once or twice, we were doing a fundraiser, who knows what the hell he was there for? The guy, Bill Clinton, is obviously has some sexual deviancies. He's cheated on Hillary their entire life. Hillary has also cheated on him. There was a book about it, where she would bring women back and sleep with women while he was out of town. And there's a ton of dirt on both of them. But everybody has their vices. Everybody has things that are uncomfortable to other people. Everybody has secrets. Everybody has skeletons in their closet. But this is a pretty big skeleton. So at a town hall meeting, there was a guy who asked Hillary, why did your husband visit the island? He says 26 times. Some people say 27. But let's listen to the crowd's response.
You want somebody who's going to get up every day.
Hey, Hillary, why'd your husband visit Epstein Island 26 times?
See how they're trying to stop him from asking the question? And then he's dragged out for asking a question.
Get up every day.
Hey, Hillary, why'd your husband visit Epstein Island 26 times?
It's a valid question. It's a valid question. The biggest concern here is how deep the rabbit hole goes. Here's Donald Trump being asked the question. And Donald Trump, we'll go into that after we listen to his response to the question.
Do you really think the Clintons are involved in Jeffrey Epstein's death? I have no idea. I know he was on his plane 27 times, and he said he was on the plane 4 times. But when they checked the plane log, Bill Clinton, who was a very good friend of Epstein, he was on the plane about 27 or 28 times. So why did he say 4 times? And then the question you have to ask is, did Bill Clinton go to the island? Because Epstein had an island that was not a good place, as I understand it, and I was never there. So you have to ask, did Bill Clinton go to the island? That's the question. If you find that out, you're going to know a lot. Thank you very much.
So Trump himself has been with Jeffrey Epstein, dozens of times. Literally dozens of times. They knew each other. They interacted. They hung out together. There's videos of them at parties together. So you could easily say, and that's what the left is doing, they're making the argument that Trump was with Jeffrey Epstein and Trump went to Jeffrey Epstein's island. So if it's good enough for the goose, it's good enough for the gander, right? If we're going to sit here and say, that Bill Clinton and all these Democrats visited the island, well, the left is going to say that it was also Donald Trump. Here are some photos of Donald Trump with Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. There's Trump and his wife, and there's, I mean, he's with them multiple times over the years. I mean, Epstein's been to Mar-a-Lago. Epstein has been, you know, did Trump go to the island? I mean, who the hell knows? Who knows? I don't know. Do you know? You don't know. I mean, the people are naturally going to stick to their side of the political things and say, no, Trump didn't do it, but Bill Clinton did. We don't know if either one of them did or if both of them did. They could have been there together. We have no idea. But that's not the deepest, most concerning part. Like I said earlier, just because somebody was with them doesn't mean they did anything wrong. And just because you went to the island doesn't mean you did anything wrong either. You know, he could have had this secret thing going on right under people's noses and nobody knew about it. It's like Amanda Berry, that girl that was kidnapped and lived in that guy's house for a decade, and he had friend and family over, and, you know, nobody knew. Nobody knew that this guy had women kidnapped in his closet in their own rooms for years. Here's Amanda Berry escaped the house, ran out, and this famous interview is what we got basically from this story.
Charles, let me talk to you. I'm talking with Charles Ramsey. He's a neighbor. Walk me through again what happened this afternoon. You heard screaming.
Heard screaming. I meet my McDonald's. I come outside. I see this girl going nuts, trying to get out of her house. So I go on the porch.
Okay.
I go on the porch, and she says, "Help me get out. I've been in here a long time." So, you know, I figured it's a domestic violence dispute. So I open the door, and we can't get in that way because how the door is, it's so much that a body can't fit through, only your hand. So we kick the bottom, and she comes out with the little girl, and she says, "Call 911. My name was Amanda Berry."
Did you know who that was when she said that?
When she told me, it didn't register until I got the call in 911, and then I'm like, I'm calling the 911 for Amanda Berry? I thought this girl was dead. You know what I mean? And she got on the phone and she said, "Yes, this is me." And the detective, Cook, right here, Detective Gregory Cook says, "Charles, do you know who you rescued?" I said.
Now, and when did you see Gina?
So, this guy, this clown, not the guy giving the interview, the guy that was holding them all captive, had friends over. He had 3 kidnapped teenage girls, sex slaves: Amanda Berry, Gina DeJesus, and Michelle Knight, all held captive for a decade in his house. And people came over, they came and went. Nobody knew anything. Nobody knew anything. So it's possible that many people went to this island and didn't know what was going on there because he used it as a cover. There's a million scenarios. Are we ever going to know the truth? The answer is no, we're not. And when the names are released, if they're even anything credible, we'll get into it further. Thank you for tuning in. This is Ryan Samuels. Make sure you hit that follow button, that like button, and we will see you next time.
Thanks for tuning in to the Ryan Samuels Show. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.